time around. I don't just want to sit back and say whatever they bring for me is okay by me. I want to take out that bold step by myself. Let me see if my votes will count or not. That is the more reason why I've made up my mind that this year I must step out, get my voter's card, and I must vote.
If the 2023 Nigerian elections are free and fair, young citizens should determine the country's next president. According to the Independent National Electoral Commission, out of the 93.4 million people registered to vote, 37 million are between the ages of 18 to 34. That's 39.65%. While this is reflective of the country's large youth population, over time, voter turnout in Nigeria has been low.
Typically, voter turnout has been low because of issues regarding electoral violence and just the general feeling that votes are not going to count. So when people feel like if they go out, whoever it is, has their favorite already, as it were, they don't feel like they need to engage with the process. But we see a lot of evidence now that that is changing. So we are seeing a lot of mobilization around people going to get their PVCs, and before that, people going to already start to vote. Although we have had these PVC drives over the last several cycles now, 2011, 2015, 2019. Right now, this is at a height that we haven't seen before. And we also have not just the initial clamor for people to register, but an even greater clamor for those PVCs that people have already registered for to be collected.
Over 76% of newly registered voters are between the ages of 18 to 34, according to INEC. But for young Nigerians to decide, coming out to vote is crucial.
The research that we have done and has also been complemented by research done by other organizations shows that people are more interested in this particular cycle and are more likely to also come out and vote as well.
Steers provide data-driven insights on Africa. The organization recently carried out one of the largest electoral polls in Nigeria, covering over 6,200 respondents across the country's 36 states. According to their results, Peter Obi of the Labour Party appears to be the favorite based on declared votes. Their results also show that in a high turnout scenario, Obi is likely to win the presidential elections. But in a low turnout scenario, Bola Tinubu is likely to emerge victorious. And if only the most certain voters come out to vote, there could be a runoff between Obi and Tinubu.
We think that the sentiment is coalescing around Peter Obi right now. Although there is a spread between himself and Bola Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar, all three of whom have a good chance at the presidency, but we see just a significant leaning of the youth vote toward Peter Obi.
In the 2019 elections, just over 35% of registered citizens voted. And while there are several factors responsible for low turnout, such as electoral violence and difficulty collecting voters' cards, the effects of a recent social and political awakening may lead to youths at the polls in record numbers. In October 2020, millions of Nigerians protested against police brutality. Demonstrations held both online and on the streets of several cities, not just in the country, but across the world. The largest demonstrations Nigeria has witnessed in recent history.
It has never happened. And I'm proud to say that I am proud of our generation. I am proud of this generation. And I can also say to you that this government messed with the wrong generation.
Yes, we are the wrong generation.
It is legal to demand our rights as long as it is peaceful. And here we are protesting peacefully.
The majority of protesters were young people. Debo Adedayo, more commonly known as Mr. Macaroni, is an actor, content creator, and citizen activist. As a first-time voter, he says the End SARS protests definitely pushed him and more young people to get their permanent voters' cards.
This will be the first election that I'll be voting. You know, I used to belong to that group of people that will say, oh, our votes don't count in Nigeria. I'm not going to participate in elections. But because of End SARS, you know, what happened was really tough, especially for a lot of us that we were so involved in everything that happened. And look, I said to myself, we cannot continue to talk on the sides. We cannot just continue to say, oh, we're not happy about this or that. What are we doing about it?
From End SARS, I guess, a new, or you could say renewed, youth interest in governance in Nigeria and policy generally. And a number of people have pointed out that, you know, since October 2020, we haven't really seen any products from that. But I think the general consensus for those who are paying attention is people are waiting to make noise at the polling booths.
The End SARS protests, and particularly the aftermath, had an effect on many people's mental health. Distrust for the government grew, especially once innocent protesters were shot by members of the military and police force in Lagos State. A massacre confirmed by the Lagos State Judicial Panel of Inquiry that was set up by the government to investigate. Rinu Oduala, a citizen activist who demonstrated during the protests and served on the judicial panel, says there are still so many undocumented deaths that occurred during this period, and she's hopeful that these events will have a strong impact on voter turnout.
Young Nigerians came to protest against police brutality, and then the shooting started. There's still so many undocumented deaths that arose from the End SARS protests, just in Lagos alone, not to talk of the entire nation. You know, protesters were killed all over Nigeria just for simply asking for an end to police brutality. I think that is going to have a very strong impact as young Nigerians are looking towards another avenue at protesting, which should be at the polls. You know, many young Nigerians are angry, they're tired.
Dr. Bonjubola Abiri, a psychiatrist, says the events of October 2020 were a significant life event for many people. And while this may encourage people to go out to vote, it may also hold others back.
So I think that it's very imperative to recall that the End SARS protest was a significant life event for quite a number of people. Traumatic for a significant number, especially those who witnessed it, either directly or those who were not even there. The impact, of course, of such an event of magnitude is one that can have short-term, mid-term, and long-term consequences. For some, it may have started a new mental health problem, while for some, it may have awoken something that was already ongoing. To look at the impact of that on, you know, the upcoming voters' exercise that is about to happen in the country, and to look at the impact, the truth is, it's important to look at them as two separate events and think about the fact that one may not have an impact on the other. But for those who remember it every day, it is likely to have an impact because people may generalize from the happenings of the End SARS protest, and people may feel threatened. They may feel like their safety and security may be threatened. They may have, you know, reminders or flashbacks or nightmares about the End SARS protest.
The events of October 2020 certainly heightened the fears and anxieties of many people. But INEC voter registration figures suggest that millions of people are determined to vote.
I think the End SARS protests play a very important role, especially nowadays where young people are more interested in their civic duties and being part of the election process. I think the End SARS protests made it very apparent to us that we are on our own and we have to do better in being involved in how this country is run and make our voices heard. I've been noticing more people make the effort to collect their PVCs, and I think that effort is not going to go to waste. I think people are especially the young people, are more serious about how they want to be governed and they want to have a say in their governing. So I definitely think that right now the voter turnout is on the up.
It was the issue of police brutality that Nigerian youths were protesting. But it soon became the issue of, because at the end of the day, everything just connects. If you talk about police brutality, you have to talk about the welfare of the policemen. I think it also begs the question about how the policemen are trained. And then that also questions where the resources for the training of the policemen go to. And then it all boils down to bad governance. And because of that, it sort of, made Nigerian youths to realize that for them to get the required change, for them to get the desired change, that they must be part, of governance in one way or another.
Over the course of Nigeria's history, votes have often been cast along religious, ethnic, and regional lines, a sentiment that's still strong across all demographics of the country. But if the NSARS protests have shown anything, it's that good governance is also a priority for millions of Nigerians.
Evidence historically has shown, whether via elections or in terms of political appointments, and even honestly, oftentimes in the private sector, evidence has shown how much of an influence religion, especially then ethnicity, plays in people's choices. This time around, though, I think that there could possibly be a difference, right? I think that there could possibly be a situation where there are enough people, like the youth, I think, that are willing to break that mold. What is interesting, though, is that we haven't yet seen enough historical data to back this, so it's essentially a hypothesis where a certain cohort, perhaps young women who tend to be, when you look at voting data, they tend to be the boldest in backing the most extreme or new candidates. Perhaps there's enough of them who decide that actually I am really now going to look away from if this person looks or sounds like me and vote based on my best interest.
Now that the people are unhappy and the people believe that they deserve better, I see a lot of people that are not looking at, whether this person is from my tribe. With the situation of things, people are motivated to vote for who they believe will do a good job.
Voter turnout is key if young Nigerians are to decide, and there's widespread confidence in an increase this time around. The NSARS protests and the aftermath of events have certainly encouraged more people, particularly youths, to register to vote. But unless the elections are peaceful and of strong democratic standards, it is hard to determine whether the awakening in 2020 will be evident at the polls. Laila Johnson-Salami, Arise News.